The second part of lesson 4.2 continues with graphing rational functions, but now we're introducing a new kind of twist in what the graph will look like. There's a possibility that as you sketch these equations or these functions, you end up with a hole in your graph. And what this means is that you'll have a factor in both the numerator and denominator that are the same. Because it's in the denominator, it'll be a restriction for your domain, but it's not going to be a vertical asymptote. When it matches on top and bottom, it creates a hole in your graph. And what will end up happening that makes the graph even crazier is that the factors will actually cancel out as we determine the ordered pair. Let's put this to the test. Sketch the graph of f of x equals x squared minus 9 over x squared plus 2x minus 15. I'm not sure why that has a question mark. We're just going to sketch that. Then we're going to include the domain and range, the asymptotes, the intercepts, and we'll plot with our additional points. So step 1, let's go ahead and factor the numerator and denominator. In the numerator, we have x squared minus 9. Perfect square minus a perfect square. This will split apart into x plus 3 and x minus 3. In the denominator, we have x squared plus 2x minus 15. Notice we have an a value of 1, so we're just going to split the c to try to get the b in the middle. Numbers that go into 15, 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. Can we work with either pair to get positive 2 when we add, but negative 15 when we multiply? Hopefully you recognize that if we do x plus 5 times x minus 3, that together they have a product of negative 15, but a sum of positive 2. That's factoring that polynomial. So f of x equals x plus 3 times x minus 3 all over x plus 5 times x minus 3. I'm just going to make that 5 a little bit easier to see. And you'll notice right away that there's an x plus 3 in the numerator and denominator. So I'm just going to put a bubble around that. This is going to indicate that we have a matching factor and a hole in our graph. Let's go to step 2, determining our domain and our range, and we'll see how that hole in the graph plays a part in this process. We know in the domain we have 2 parentheses now. So x can't equal either of those. X can't equal negative 5, and it can't equal positive 3. For the range, now here's what's unique about the range. Since we have multiple terms on the top and the bottom, we're going to go back to our original equation. So for the range, I'm going to go back to the lead term on top divided by the lead term on the bottom. X squared divided by x squared. Now technically they just cancel out altogether to equal 1. What that tells us for our function is that f of x can't equal 1. And that's how we determine our range. Now for our vertical and horizontal asymptotes. Our vertical asymptote, we actually won't have 2. We're just going to have 1. We're going to write x equals negative 5. And we'll deal with that 3 in just a second. Our horizontal asymptote is going to be, oops, that's a colon right there. Not the way it looked, but we'll get that. It's going to be y equals 1. All right, so now between steps 3 and 4, we're going to take care of that hole in the graph. The hole in the graph is when x equals positive 3, because that's the match on top and the bottom. So to get that, what we need to do is now cancel that matching factor. So when x equals 3 and it cancels that factor out, we need to determine what's left over. If we plug in 3 for x on top and bottom, we get 3 plus 3 over 3 plus 8 over 3 plus 5, which equals 8. Thinking faster than I'm writing. That would give us 6 over 8 which is 3/4. So the hole in our graph has an ordered pair of 3, 3/4. So we're going to plot that on our coordinate system. Yep, that's what we're doing. Okay, so that's all step 3. That's kind of crazy right there. We're going to have ourselves a little bit more room. Ooh, we're not shy on room here, are we? All right, step 4. In step 4, we determine our zeros. So now for our zeros, we only have one numerator, and that's x plus 3. If we set that equal to 0, it's going to cross the x-axis at -3. So that would be -3, 0. Our y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x on top and bottom. We get 0 plus 3 over 0 plus 5, and that's 3/5. So our y-intercept is 0, 3/5. I think now would be a great time to plot all the things we have. So let's first start off by drawing in our asymptotes. I'm going to use red for that. So I'm going to draw in my vertical asymptote at -5. Let's draw that over here, like so, and label. And then my horizontal asymptote at y equals 1, right along here. And label that. Now we need to draw in that hole in the graph. So I'm going to go over to 3 and then kind of draw an open circle that represents a hole in the graph right there. I know, that's pretty rough looking. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try this. Hang on. I'm going to zoom in here. Whoa, careful. All right, I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to try that again. 3 3/4, so that's somewhere up in here. That's where that open circle should be in the graph. Now remember, everybody, the graph is going to connect to that point. It's just kind of a little blip in the system. So that's going to be an interesting thing to graph. Sure, why not? All right, the rest of it, what else do we have? We have our x-intercept, which is -3, 0. So I'll put a point over here at -3, 0. I'll try to make that a little clearer. Our y-intercept is 0, 3/5. So what I'm going to do is zoom out again and try to get that y-intercept just a little bit clearer to see. It's a little bit beyond halfway, but notice it's not quite as high up as 3 3/4. So the graph is technically going to curve towards that horizontal asymptote, which is kind of good. All right, let's see. We'll zoom back out so that we can make our table. I'm actually going to put my tables over on the left since I ran out of room in my workspace. Sorry about that. All right, let's plot some additional points, and we'll use our vertical asymptote as our guide. Remember, our vertical asymptote can't equal -5, so we'll pick values that are less than -5, and then over here we'll pick some values that are greater than -5. Let's see, so on the less than side, if I plug in -6, we're only plugging it into the part that's left over. So remember, we're only plugging it into the x plus 3 over x plus 5. If we plug in -6, -6 plus 3 is -3, -6 plus 5 is -1, -3 over -1 is +3. So if I go to -6 up 3, that puts me here on the graph. If I go to -7, that would be -4 over -2, which is 2. So far, so good. So can you see how it's going to kind of curve towards both of those? I think we can connect this, don't you? If we draw a curve on that left-hand side, turn up, see if I can get that to connect right up there. That looks pretty good for that portion of the graph. Over on the right, we have a couple of good dots right there. We've got the -3, 0. We have 0, 3/5. And then we have that hole in the graph at 3 3/4. So let's see, how about we plug in -4 and we'll see what happens. -4 plus 3 is -1. Ooh, and -4 plus 5 is +1. So that would put us at -1, -4, -1. We can kind of see that curve going there. All right, I think we're good. So here's the graph on this one. This one's going to be kind of tricky for me to draw as well. Let's zoom out because it hasn't been crazy looking enough so far. All right, we'll give this a whirl. It's going to approach the asymptote on each side, connect to that hole in the graph, and kind of keep going, and then all of a sudden just drop down towards that vertical asymptote. So that wasn't so bad. So notice, make sure you can see, I know it's kind of hard with that highlighter, there's that hole in the graph right there. It's kind of just like an open circle. So instead of having a vertical asymptote, that's how you show the boundary. Thankfully, our application question does not have a graph involved. It says the cost of removing a pollutant is modeled by the given function, where f of p is the cost in millions of dollars. Whoops, not erasing that, or crossing that off, I mean. Just wanted to underline it, millions of dollars. There we go. And p is the percent of whatever pollutant they're looking at. What percent of the pollutant can be removed for $78.3 million? If we think about our formula, f of p is 8.7 p over 100 minus p. So f of p is the cost, and p is the percent that we're trying to eliminate of a particular pollutant. That's hard to say. All right, let's see what we have. Now they tell us the cost. They say if we have $78.3 million, that would be the output. So if f of p equals 78.3 million, we would actually plug that in on the left-hand side. 78.3 equals 8.7p over 100 minus p. So what makes this kind of interesting is the fact that we have a variable in the numerator and denominator. So that makes this a rational function. Let's see, I think the easiest thing for us to do is take the left-hand side and make it a fraction as well, and then we're going to cross multiply. And if you cross multiply, we would get 8.7 times, or 8.7p times 1, which is just 8.7p. But then when we cross multiply on the other side, we're going to get 78.3 times 100 minus p. Distribute, and we get 8.7p equals 7,830 minus 78.3p. We have a variable on each side, so let's get them on the same side. I'll add 78.3p to the left and right. If we combine like terms, 8.7 plus 78.3 equals 87p. On the right-hand side, that cancels out, and we're left with 7830. Finally, to get p by itself, we'll just divide by 87. And we get p is equal to 90%. What that means is if you want to eliminate 90% of a particular pollutant, it's going to cost you $78.3 million. Ooh, and that's lesson 4.2.